friends in Planet Earth Dating. It's Tuesday, February 18th, 2020. In both the Lynn Life and the Jamie Body Mind, the Authorized Souls remain only child souls from the deeper, denser dimensions, and all other souls from all other dimensions, as long as the souls are already living by the many rules already given to the search for truth community by wiser minds above all of us. Somebody has just stepped up to the interdimensional microphone, and they are in that room of angels and godly presences who maybe they're like accepting on a trial basis, possibly.
That's what it feels like.
The responsibility for planet Earth, and they're kind of taking the job to see if the job description was accurate or if there's some
that's right.
prevarication, fraud in the inducement.
Exactly.
This presence feels like they might be somehow affiliated with the guardian angels for humanity because they want to speak to humanity and give some good advice. And it feels as though they were charged with the responsibility of getting this advice across, and they see that didn't track very well.
I feel that.
And the spotlight is shining on this one particular Buddhist teaching, which is that we are of the nature to grow old, get sick, and die.
That's right.
And that is the reality, and that arguing with that reality or refusing to acknowledge that reality is the cause of an awful lot of suffering.
Well, that's right.
Trying to avoid looking like we're growing old, for example. A lot of people do a lot of really crazy things that are not what the situation calls for.
Yeah, that's right.
And then trying to not die, which we can hear how crazy that sounds. We don't know if you can hear it. But trying to not die, people put themselves through inordinate amounts of suffering and misery, and they spend every last penny, and they spend the penny of insurance companies and governments trying to keep themselves alive when we are of the nature to grow old, get sick, and die. And it actually isn't any fun to be extending life through a series of medical treatments. It actually feels better to just live while you're healthy and then say, this is really as far as I want to push it.
Yeah, that's right.
And then go to hospice. For whom is the message, and why do you ask? Why are they doing that? That person doing that? I know that that soul who was speaking was charged with the responsibility of getting that message across in ground zero and getting it across presumably to humanity.
I feel that.
And whether it's maybe it's the Buddha, I don't know, I don't think so.
I don't think so.
It is a Buddhist saying.
Yeah, that's true.
But it doesn't feel as though it's the Buddha himself. It's hard to say. Other presences who have been charged with the responsibility of getting that message across is that, hey, we're all going to die. Chill out. I'm going to die. You're going to die. She's going to die. Baxter, our dog, is going to die. We're all going to die, and that it's okay. And that this is normal. It's normal.
That's right. Nobody gets out alive.
Nobody gets out alive. And now, how do we live in the most effective way? How do we do what we were born to do, given the reality that death is certain, but the time of death is uncertain? That's another Buddhist saying.
Yeah, it is.
Then, how do we live effectively? How to fulfill our commitments, our soul plans, our sacred vows to spirit. And this is true for all sentiences in all dimensions, because no matter where we are, we're having an experience of sentience.
That's true.
And we're going to be held accountable for that experience of sentience. And now that presence kind of steps back from the microphone, and somebody else is stepping forward, and it's all in this room that feels like they're taking this on a trial basis, a room of angels and godly presences who are their concern is that there was fraud in the inducement, and so they don't want to sign a long-term commitment before they test out. It's like test drive the car or something like that. So we know that we have these questions that have been coming through these two Ground Zero host life vessels, bounced off the echo point from wiser minds much higher than that probationary group.
That's right.
They say they aren't probationary, that we've got it backwards, and maybe they've accepted the assignment on a probationary basis, with those who are giving out the assignment being the ones who are tested. This is an important point. Somebody else is talking about how important it is to keep an attitude of experimentation, and often when we're charged with a big responsibility and we're interacting with other presences, we want to get those people to do the right thing.
Yes, that is very true.
And people are going to do what they are going to do. And obviously we should do our best, try to present the concepts well, but then they're going to make their choices, and it's incumbent upon each of us to maintain an attitude of experimentation, working to present the concepts in the best possible way, and then just see what happens, right?
What do they choose to do now?
What do they choose to do now? And then to realize that we're all being auditioned all the time for the next assignment, whatever that assignment might be. And so to these people, we might say, well, what if there were fraud in the inducement? Wouldn't that be a fabulously challenging assignment, to discover the fraud and to work through the assignment regardless? Maybe we should help them.
Yeah, maybe we should.
By asking some of these questions. And these are two questions that we have internally in our own community. They are not emailed in. They are not viewer questions. They are the questions that we have accumulated in our own community. And so possibly they would be of service to the effort of these angels and godly presences who are attempting to decide if this is an assignment they want to take.
That's
and
right.
We would invite you to have an attitude of experimentation here also.
The first question is, who is working to provide guidance to the masses to create the best possible outcome given the realities that exist currently, such as no upward flow?
Well, nobody is.
No,
there
I
were
don't-
some who are working to provide guidance to the masses. We
I
had
felt that.
some. What's the next part of the question?
To create the best possible outcome?
It's not worded that way, but there are some people who are kind of like trying to jam their assignment into that space.
Yes, they're working to create an outcome.
They're working for some purpose, and they're saying, that'll create the best possible outcome, with a kind of
Yeah.
angry, arguing tone,
Yeah.
which we think isn't likely, but I think it's irrelevant given what happens next.
Exactly, because the next part is given the realities that exist currently.
And somebody kind of like kicks over a table, kind of like in a grumpy, tantrumy way.
I feel that. You know what it looks like is like workplaces in the 60s or 50s or 40s when they were predominantly male dominated, and
Right.
these dudes would just have tantrums in the
Tantrums.
workplace. It looks kind of like that.
Yeah, they would. It's well documented. People are probably going to argue about that and be disgusting about it, but it's actually well documented. And it happened even later than that. In the early 80s, this host life was working in corporate America. We were a controller at a manufacturing company, a $200 million manufacturing company, sales of $200 million. And our boss was the VP of Finance, and he threw his coffee cup at his executive secretary,
That's right.
hurled it across the room
That's right.
in the 1980s. And so that was nothing compared to what was going on in the 1950s.
That's true.
Nothing.
And that's where we lost them upstairs, given the realities that exist currently.
All right. So nobody's working on this. So now, you guys who are auditioning, wouldn't it be fascinating and fabulous fun to show up in a planet and dimension combo pack that's being so mismanaged that nobody's even trying to do this? Like, you could look like rock stars with, just start somewhere, do something,
That's
prove
true.
something, right? You could be great.
Yeah, that's true.
Just pointing that out. Let's talk about the realities. There's somebody says,
Yeah.
well, somebody's up there in that room of
I hear
angels
you.
and godly presences. They're saying, well, lay it on me.
All right, well, here are some of the realities.
Examples.
Examples. There's no upward flow.
It does not feel as though there's argument with that statement.
I don't hear any argument upstairs.
That's progress.
That's true. The dead aren't going up.
There is still some argument with that statement.
Yeah, it's like the feeling is, I don't see why that is our problem.
Or maybe that is. I don't see how that's our problem. Or why is that problematic? What difference does it make?
Yeah, that could be the feeling. There's also a shared agreement to ignore reality and simply take positions.
Right. And when there's a bunch of dead people around who are so confused they don't even know they're dead, it really is very confusing to the more dense presences.
That's
They
true.
do have a hard time telling what's going on, especially if they're energy sensitive. And there's so much confusion that presences can't even tell if they're dead or alive.
Right?
That's a key point.
Well, many humans think it's, quote, smart to lie and cheat and steal and bully.
That's not smart. All of those things are corrupt.
Yeah,
Being
that's
corrupt
true.
is not smart. Being corrupt is being corrupt. Being
That's
smart is being
true.
smart. There are two different things. Like engaging in insurance fraud, that's not smart, that's corrupt.
Exactly.
Or any kind of fraud. We're not trying to single out insurance fraud. Tax fraud,
Exactly.
that's also corrupt.
You know what they're talking about is a movement that one was involved in, I don't know, maybe 1980s, 1990s, about adding something to the corporate charter for corporations about doing no harm.
Mhm.
And the movement got very little traction, no traction at all.
No traction.
And how people make up organizations like corporations have this attitude of it being smart to
Be
do-
corrupt and inflict harm.
Exactly. Inflict harm. That was the phrase they were saying upstairs. Like it's smart to hurt.
The greater good.
Yes.
Or the weak. Or the oppressed.
Yeah, that's true. And that's what
It's
they're talking about.
revolting to do those things. There's a difference between being revolting and being smart.
Yeah,
It's
that's
selfish, offensive, and revolting. That's what those behaviors are. For him is the message. And why do you ask? I see somebody who's interested in this. They are members of that team and they're finding it interesting. We think they're going to decide against it. We think that what they're doing is accumulating information that they can take home with them and use it in some evil way.
I think that's true.
We could, of course, be wrong.
And another reality down here is that karma is delayed until after death.
In 98% of the cases,
Yes,
it is.
Exactly.
More than 98% of the cases. Not in the top 2% of cases where the individuals involved are requesting their karma be delivered instantly, and their guardian angels have agreed to deliver the karma
Exactly.
instantly, and the guardian angels are doing the work, which is no small amount of work,
Gosh, no.
to deliver the karma instantly. In those cases, karma is being delivered instantly, but other than that, karma is by default delayed until after death. Some guardian angel has to really push something forward to speed
Yup.
the karmic cycles. The default is, this is coming around to you next life,
Yeah, that's right.
so don't be such a jerk. That's the default. And
Yeah, that's right.
think about it like house training a puppy. and if you don't want the puppy to pee in the house, and you withhold all feedback until after the puppy is dead, what would you think the odds are of the puppy learning to not pee in the house?
I think odds aren't good.
Baxter thinks that's absurd.
Yeah, would that work, Baxter?
Would that work? I'm gonna go pee in the house.
Exactly.
It wouldn't work. And
No.
we can hear it when we're talking about puppies, and so it's fascinating to us that guardian angels don't seem to be able to hear it when we're talking about humanity, who is, after all, the recipient species of all the tools of destruction that the spirit world has sent in the ideas for.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
How are you guys teaching people to manage explosives, for example? Like, what kind of instant karma are you delivering with regard to explosives? Let's just start there. You know, guns, bombs, things like that. It's very clearing.
It's very quiet. And we have the second question. What is the best possible outcome that can be created with appropriate, dependable levels of backup in the plan?
They're leaving.
They're leaving. It was with the appropriate, dependable levels of backup. There was absolutely no interest upstairs.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why. Does it feel like it's just too hard to come up with backup?
The feeling is that they feel they're being tricked.
That's the feeling. You're trying to bamboozle us.
Or trick us in some way.
And we're too smart to be caught by that.
Somebody is leaning back and saying, and it feels kind of like a Ra.
Yeah,
he's
it does.
leaning back and he's calm and he's clasping his hands and he's saying, we have to remember how it was in the old days where good quality souls would plan their incarnation cycles 5, 10, 15, 20 lifetimes in advance. Think about that, 20 lifetimes in advance. And there was some degree of dependability so that that planning process wasn't a waste of time.
That's right.
And now we don't seem to be able to provide 3 months of dependability to the guardian angels. And we don't think we can provide a month of dependability, and we don't think we can provide a week of dependability, and we don't really think we can provide a day of dependability. We think all bets are off.
Yeah, that's right.
How is this acceptable?
How is this acceptable?
And the trick to all of us is to keep an attitude of experimentation and to first consider, well, how are we messing up? Because if we don't start with that as individuals, then we're trapping ourselves in cycles of misery and suffering.
That's true.
And if you like cycles of misery and suffering, then party down. Continue to leave yourself out of the inquiry. But if you want to be free of suffering, we've got to start with, well, how am I messing up? And in that way, we empower ourselves to change and therefore change our experience of sentience. For him is the message. And why do you ask? There's still nobody interested.
No, and now I don't
Okay.
even feel that room with the auditioning groups
Mm-mm.
to be godly presences for Ground Zero Planet Earth.
It feels kind of like a tent is being folded up.
Yes, that is true.
That's okay.
That's okay.
So it's really important to remember that we are all of the nature to grow old, get sick, and die. And as we approach that transition, to kind of try to clean up our messes and make it right. And obviously, don't wait until we're
Exactly.
60 years old, or it's going to be a mountainous effort. Start to clean it up when you're 30 or 10.
Exactly.
Every day, try to clean up our messes as we go. We, in this community, we ask for our karma to be delivered instantly, and
That's
sometimes
right.
the thought of how much karma would be waiting for us at death if we didn't do that, it's just
Terrifying.
overwhelming. So we actually heartily recommend asking for karma to be delivered instantly. For him is the message. How high up does the attitude go of being afraid of karma? Somebody's saying, friends, if you're afraid of karma, think it over. That means that you know you're living a bad life.
Yeah, that's right.
Don't you want to do better than that? Or are you okay with being a bad person?